The cream-colored envelope felt heavy in my trembling hands as I stared at the embossed gold lettering. Mr. Ricardo Williams and Miss Victoria Hightower request your presence. My ex-fiancé's name made my stomach lurch, but it was the address that made me drop into my kitchen chair like I'd been punched. 1247 Maple Grove Lane. My childhood home. The house where Mom had raised me after Dad died, where we'd shared countless Sunday dinners, where she'd promised me it would always be mine someday. I called her immediately. Mom, did you sell the house? Her voice wavered. Sarah, honey, I can explain. You sold our family home for someone else's wedding? The words scraped my throat raw. 27 years I'd lived there. Every Christmas morning, every scraped knee, every bedtime story happened in those rooms. It's complicated, sweetheart. Ricardo made us an offer we couldn't refuse. Ricardo. My Ricardo. The man who'd shattered my heart 3 years ago when I caught him with his secretary. Now he was marrying someone else in my sanctuary. The drive to Maple Grove Lane felt like traveling through a time machine. My hands gripped the steering wheel as familiar streets blurred past through tears I refused to shed. Mom's Corolla sat in the driveway next to a gleaming black Mercedes I didn't recognize. The garden looked different, too perfect, too manicured. Gone were Mom's wild sunflowers and the crooked fence I'd helped Dad build when I was 12. I found Mom in the kitchen, but she wasn't alone. A woman in an expensive suit sat across from her at our old oak table, documents spread between them like weapons. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed, her usually pristine appearance disheveled. Sarah. She jumped up, knocking over her teacup. I didn't expect you so soon. The stranger smiled, but it felt predatory. You must be Sarah. I'm Diana Hightower, Victoria's mother. We were just finalizing some details about the wedding arrangements. My blood turned to ice. Hightower. Victoria Hightower, Ricardo's bride-to-be. This woman wasn't just a wedding planner. She was family. What arrangements? I demanded, my voice sharper than intended. Diana's manicured fingers tapped against a stack of papers I couldn't quite read from where I stood. Mom wrung her hands. Sarah, maybe we should talk privately. No. I moved closer to the table, scanning the documents. Purchase agreements, deed transfers, something called a family dissolution contract. The numbers made me dizzy. Mom, what is this? Diana's smile widened. Your mother has been very reasonable about relocating. The assisted living facility in Sunset Manor is quite lovely. Much more appropriate for someone in her condition. Condition. I stared at Mom, searching her face. She looked tired, older somehow, but not ill. What condition? Mom's voice came out as a whisper. The doctor said I've been having some memory issues. Diana's been helping me understand my options. The air in the room felt thick, poisonous. I'd spoken to Mom just last week. She'd been sharp, witty, complaining about her neighbor's yappy dog and planning her vegetable garden. Now she sat hunched, defeated, like she'd aged a decade overnight. Diana gathered her papers smoothly. I'll leave you two to discuss this privately. After Diana left, Mom collapsed into Dad's old recliner, looking fragile as tissue paper. I knelt beside her, taking her worn hands in mine. They were cold, trembling slightly. Mom, when did you start having memory problems? I kept my voice gentle, but inside I was screaming. She blinked rapidly. It started a few months ago. Small things at first. Forgetting appointments, losing my keys. Then Diana came by one day, said Victoria had mentioned I was Ricardo's ex-fiancé's mother, and she wanted to help. Help how? She brought me to a doctor. Dr. Hammond. He ran tests and said I was in early stages of dementia. Mom's voice broke. Sarah, I'm scared. I can't take care of this big house anymore. Diana said the money from the sale would cover my care, and Victoria and Ricardo could give the house the attention it deserves. I felt like I was drowning. Ricardo hadn't just stolen my heart. Now he was stealing my heritage. Mom, can I see the medical reports? She pointed to a manila folder on the counter. As I reached for it, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your mother signed willingly. Don't make this harder than necessary. D. The medical report felt wrong in my hands. Too clean, Too definitive for someone who'd been gardening and managing her finances perfectly just weeks ago. Dr. Hammond's signature looked fresh, the ink darker than the rest of the document. I photographed every page with my phone while Mom dozed in Dad's chair. Something nagged at me about Diana Hightower. Her clothes screamed money, Chanel suit, Louboutin heels, that massive diamond ring. If Victoria was Ricardo's secretary turned fiancé, how could her mother afford such luxury? Ricardo was comfortable but not wealthy. Not wealthy enough to buy houses in cash. I googled Diana Hightower, California on my phone and found something interesting. Diana Hightower, convicted of elder fraud in 2018, sentenced to probation and community service. The photo showed the same perfectly sculpted face, the same predatory smile. My hands shook as I scrolled through more articles. Diana had a pattern, befriending elderly homeowners, convincing them they needed care, then acquiring their property through charitable organizations that were actually shell companies. She'd been barred from working with seniors, but apparently that didn't stop her. I screenshotted everything, my heart hammering against my ribs. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mom's sudden decline, Diana's convenient appearance, and that medical report that felt like a forgery. At 3 a.m. I found myself digging through old photo albums in my apartment, looking for something to ground me in reality. There was a picture from last Christmas. Mom and I baking cookies, her face bright with laughter as flour dusted her hair. She looked vibrant, healthy, completely present. I'd taken dozens of videos that day. Mom telling stories about Dad, reciting her famous sugar cookie recipe from memory, planning renovations for the spring garden. I uploaded everything to a private cloud folder, my fingers flying across the keyboard. If this was fraud, I needed evidence. I called the number for Dr. Hammond's office, expecting voicemail at this hour. Neurological Associates, emergency line. I need to verify a patient report for Margaret Walsh. My mother was diagnosed with dementia yesterday. Pause. I'm sorry, but Dr. Hammond doesn't work with dementia patients. He's a sports medicine physician. You might have the wrong number. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Sports medicine. Not neurology. Not memory care. Sports medicine. The next morning I drove straight to the address listed on the fake medical report. Instead of a neurology clinic, I found a CrossFit gym sandwiched between a taco shop and a nail salon. Through the window I watched Dr. Hammond, if that was even his name, leading a spinning class, his lean frame nowhere near the distinguished older physician I'd imagined. I called the California Medical Board from my car. I need to report fraudulent medical documentation. While I waited for them to investigate, I decided to dig deeper into Ricardo and Victoria's relationship. Something about this whole situation felt orchestrated. Ricardo had never mentioned Victoria having a mother who looked like she stepped off a magazine cover. He'd always been attracted to money and status. Maybe Victoria's family wealth was what drew him away from me. I drove to Ricardo's office building, my chest tight with anxiety. His receptionist, not Victoria, I noted, smiled politely when I asked to speak with him. He's in a meeting with the Hightower Group about the wedding venue contract, she said cheerfully. Should be done in an hour if you'd like to wait. Hightower Group. I googled it immediately. Diana Hightower, CEO and founder of Hightower Group Properties, a real estate acquisition company specializing in distressed properties and elder transitions. The pieces clicked together like a horrifying puzzle. I waited in the parking garage watching the elevator doors. When Ricardo emerged an hour later with Diana and a younger woman who had to be Victoria, I started recording on my phone. They were laughing, celebrating something. Diana handed Ricardo what looked like deed papers. The Walsh property will be perfect for the reception, Diana was saying. Such a quaint family home. The old woman was so grateful we could help her transition to proper care. My blood boiled. Old woman. Mom was 68 and had been completely independent until Diana poisoned her with lies about dementia. Ricardo spotted me and his face went white. Sarah? What are you doing here? Learning the truth about my mother's memory problems. I held up my phone, making sure the recording was visible. Interesting business model, Diana. find vulnerable seniors, fake medical reports, steal their homes. Victoria stepped forward, her voice shrill. You can't prove anything. Your mother signed everything willingly. Did she? With fake medical documents and a phony diagnosis. I smiled coldly. Dr. Hammond runs a gym, Victoria. Not a neurology clinic. I've already filed a report with the medical board and the elder abuse hotline. Diana's composure finally cracked. You little bitch. You have no idea who you're messing with. Actually, I do. A convicted elder fraud specialist who should be in prison. The confrontation in the parking garage gave me what I needed. Diana's admission on video, Ricardo's complicity, and enough evidence to build a case. But I wasn't done. I wanted justice served publicly, the way they'd tried to publicly humiliate Mom by stealing her dignity and independence. I spent the next week building an airtight case. The medical board confirmed Dr. Hammond's credentials were falsified. A handwriting expert verified Mom's signature on several documents had been forged. Most damning of all, I discovered Diana's shell company had already flipped 2 other elderly victims' homes for massive profits. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday. On Friday night, I made copies of everything and delivered them to 3 places: the district attorney's office, the local news station, and the venue coordinator at my childhood home. Saturday morning, I put on my best dress, the navy one I'd worn to Dad's memorial service, and drove to Maple Grove Lane. Cars lined the street, wedding guests arriving in their finery. I parked and walked up the driveway where I'd learned to ride a bike, where Dad had taught me to change oil, where Mom had waved goodbye every first day of school. The house looked beautiful, decorated with white roses and fairy lights. My roses, blooming in the garden I'd helped plant. The ceremony was already underway when I slipped through the back gate into the garden. Ricardo stood at an altar positioned exactly where Mom's vegetable patch used to grow. Victoria looked radiant in expensive white silk, her mother beaming in the front row. I waited until the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union. I object. My voice carried across the silent garden as I stepped into view. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as guests turned to stare. Ricardo's face went from confusion to horror as he recognized me. Sarah, what are you doing? Stopping a crime. I pulled out printed copies of all my evidence. This wedding is taking place in a home stolen through elder fraud. Diana Hightower convinced my vulnerable mother she had dementia, forged medical documents, and coerced her into selling our family property. Diana shot to her feet. Security. Remove this woman immediately. But I wasn't finished. The district attorney has already issued warrants. Dr. Hammond's fake credentials, forged signatures on deed transfers, and video evidence of conspiracy to commit elder abuse. I held up my phone. Including your confession yesterday in the parking garage. The officiant looked bewildered. Wedding guests pulled out their phones, some already live streaming the drama. Victoria's perfect wedding was becoming a very public scandal. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. I sat in the kitchen of our restored family home, watching Mom tend her replanted sunflowers through the window. Diana Hightower was serving 18 months in state prison. Ricardo had lost his real estate license and faced civil penalties. Victoria had quietly disappeared from town. The house was ours again, legally and morally. But more than that, I'd discovered my purpose. The Sarah Walsh Foundation for Elder Protection had opened its doors last month, offering free legal assistance to seniors facing property fraud. Mom brought me tea in Dad's old chipped mug, the one Diana had tried to throw away during her decluttering. We sat together in comfortable silence, the afternoon sun warming our faces. I'm proud of you, Mom said softly. Your father would be too. I squeezed her hand, still steady and strong. This is just the beginning, Mom. No one else should lose their home to predators like Diana. Outside, her sunflowers turned toward the light, resilient and beautiful, exactly where they belonged.